we can probably make a start, can't we, really? Well,
Scott, yeah, sure.
welcome everybody. My name's Scott Clayton. For those that don't know me, I'm the founder of the charity Bluetonic, and we've run these since lockdown, really. So we get mixed numbers now, but the main reason we run them really is to record them. So this session is being recorded tonight, and we've got a wonderful story to listen to. And I'll take Nick through that in a minute. Just before we do that, I'll just tell you a little bit about the charity. Um, we're a charity that's all based on something called the Blue Mind, which is the concept that water is like incredibly good for our mental health and well-being. We're made of water, we evolved from the water. And the book, The Blue Mind, written by Dr. Wallace, the late Wallace, Dr. Wallace J. Nichols, basically gathers together all that science and highlights why water is incredibly powerful to our mental health and well-being. I say it before, I'll say it again, but if you just go to Blue Spaces, and there's a perfect example in the background there of Nick's Zoom. If you just go to Blue Spaces, just to walk by a canal, just twice a week during your lifetime, you live longer. In terms of charity activity, these sessions are totally free. You are more than welcome to make a donation. If you do, I may as well tell you about the activity so you know what that's going towards. Um, the first thing we do is a little bit of a fundraiser, so you can donate in there. It's called Awaken Your Blue Mind. Um, and Awaken Your Blue Mind is basically a journaling exercise that people do through the winter months. There's 100 different activities you can do. We ask people to try and do one thing a week to take them to the water and just journal it. That can be writing poetry by water, it can be striking up a conversation with somebody by the water, or it can be right to going for a cold water dip in the winter. There's all sorts of activities on there. If you sign up via our website, you get a wonderful badge at the end of that. I have got one just down here somewhere. Um, so that's the kind of sew on badge. They're really popular actually. Like I don't know, scouts. People are eternally good at wanting to collect things like that. So people stitch them on dry robes and towels or whatever. But you get that. And apart from that, we've got the Under the Bridge Choir, which is a group of men in the East Midlands that gather and sing under bridges all around the East Midlands. We've just finished recording our Christmas video, so that's the latest thing. It's a sea shanty, and we're hoping it gets picked up and gets shared quite widely. So just watch out for that. We've got something else called Undercurrents, which is all about women coming together, spending time by the water and sharing their experiences of going through the menopause, giving each other hints and tips. So it's like a safe space for women to explore that and talk about how the water and being by it or in it and around it can really help. Apart from that, the last thing we do as well at the moment is something called Swim Safe. That's for young people in England, and it's a free session that they come to with their parents, and they learn all about the dangers around water by the coast and inland, but they actually physically get in the water, and we talk them through cold water shock and survival and all those sorts of things, while also not scaring them too much about the water, if that makes sense. So that's everything to do with the charity, really. But any questions are welcomed later on. But let's just sort of, excuse the pun, dive in and talk a little bit about Nick and his life. So welcome, Nick.
Hello.
So
Hi.
a Byronaholic is the term you use, isn't it? So what's a Byronaholic, first of all?
I think somebody, well, I suppose somebody who's got a kind of lifelong interest in something that's very compulsive that you try and get away from, but it keeps coming back, not to haunt you, but it's obviously very addictive. So I think Byron's one of those characters that hooks people, you know.
Yeah,
I mean, there was this nice story, people who get obsessed with people like Elvis and people who die young like that in history are, I think they become very enigmatic. I mean, it was one of those little trivia things that James Dean, the great movie star, his middle name was James Byron Dean, Byron, because his
wow.
mother was, a great fan or something of the poetry and whatever. So he's James Byron Dean. And it's odd, of course, because James Dean died young, you know, so he's the great, you know, all that sort of stuff. So I think, yeah, Byron's, yeah, I think it's the enigma. And he died just before photography really came in. So there aren't any pictures of him, and there's no video, there's no Zoom, there's no YouTube or anything. So I mean, what happened was somebody at some family gathering said, this is when I was 19. I mean, it's tricky to believe now, but when I was 19, they said, oh, you're the dead spit of Lord Byron. So I was at art school at the time, and I thought, yeah, man, you know, let's find out more about this. So that's kind of how it
That
started.
hooked you.
Yeah.
Wow. So prior to that, you were born on around the Wirral,
Yeah, I
uh,
was born in Tranmere.
right?
Yeah, born in Tranmere and started swimming in this little swimming pool back in the day called the Guinea Gap Baths. And the funny thing is, you know, you meet so many people in your life. A lot of people's names, you know, they escape you. It just, you know, they just sort of fritter away. But for some reason, the guy, my nanny used to take me, my dad's mother, and she used to take me to this little swimming pool. And this guy would throw me in these little woolen shorts. I mean, it was pretty cold and rudimentary. And the guy was called Mr. Ferryman. You know, why did I remember that name of all names, you know, back in the day? Because I can't remember my school teachers, but he's the guy who used to sort of throw me into the cold water and get going and all the rest of it. So yeah, Mr. Ferryman.
Cool. Um, so yeah, so you grew up round there, and that was your first experience getting thrown in by Mr. Ferryman.
Yeah.
But did you have much of a relationship with the water? I mean, obviously, Liverpool. I know you're a Liverpool fan, and ferry crossed the Mersey and all these sorts of things. There's a big connection with Liverpool and the water, isn't there?
Yeah, very much. And for the first 10 years of my life, I grew up on the Wirral, but latterly near West Kirby, you know, very near where, what's his name, James Bond?
Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig. So we went from the same neck of the woods. We had a scene of a sort of very Derek Jarman-esque scene of Byron getting married, and we filmed it at Red Rocks, where my parents did all their courting back in the very early 50s. So
Wow.
you know, so I think water is incredibly important to people. Yeah.
And uh, and then you went on to study. Was that in London or was it? Where did you study?
So when I was a kid, I moved to the East Midlands,
Yeah,
and then I did a foundation year at Trent Polytechnic, which is now Nottingham Trent University.
yeah.
Then I moved to Falmouth. That's weird because that was near the sea.
Wow, yeah.
That's now a very reputable art school. Well, it was in those days. So I went to Falmouth for a year, and because of romance, I decided to move nearer to the person I was involved with, nearer London. So I managed to get a scholarship to the Slade,
Yeah.
which is part of University College, and then the Byron thing surfaced again. So what happened was I was doing photography and some painting, and it said little advertisement in the corridor. It said film courses. This would be about 1979. Film courses in a little annex. So I went along, learned how to load a magazine of 16mm, put it in a camera, and then I thought, yeah, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make an epic, ridiculously ambitious movie about Lord Byron.
Oh, wow.
So that's how I got my degree. And then I showed this crazy movie about Lord Byron to two guys called Leslie McGahey. What's the other chap called? Leslie McGahey, and the other guy, Alan Yentob. Yeah, Alan Yentob, who's he was head of BBC Two, and they gave me a job. And I
Wow.
became film editor, and then the rest of that sort of just started to kind of build up. I had a huge sort of modest career in TV. And then eventually, after I moved to Birmingham to work on Crossroads and programs like that, I moved out and came back to Nottingham. And then the Byron thing again surfaced again. So yeah, it's been one of those things that's like a little spirit on one's shoulder, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that at that point, then, is that when you first? When did the sort of interest in Byron, and then the the learning that I guess that he had an incredible relationship with water, and then you not only emulated Byron but emulated his physical swims and stuff. So when did that first become a
Well,
thing?
the context is that Byron was born with what they've never obviously really discovered what it was, but perhaps in the old days they called it a club foot,
Yeah,
a certain condition of the foot, and it's never been correctly established whether it was his left or his right, but there we are, that's another story. But he had the same condition. So if you can imagine Lord Byron walking a little bit like John Thor, the great actor who played Morse, and Jack Regan and the Sweeney, he walked with this slight, this dragging of the foot. And also the great actor Dudley Moore, one of my favorite pianists, he had exactly the same condition as well, or a form of it. So Byron, had this disability, which he's incredibly conscious of, because the rest of it was Holly movie star material. He was obviously extremely bright. He came from a great lineage of people, going hundreds of years back. And he was a very good looking guy. But he had this disability. So he learned to do other things incredibly well as a compensation. So he couldn't run. He played cricket at Harrow, but he had a runner. So he couldn't run in that way. And he was very self-conscious of his of the physical aspects of this particular foot and his leg. So swimming was one of those things that he obviously started to excel at, and a bit like other people like me, inspired to do those two swims because of my interest in Byron and the sort of emulation. He was equally inspired by people before, but interestingly, the Hellespont was Hero and Leander, the Greek myth. Well, it's not a Greek myth, it was apparently true, was it? Greek myth. So all of these swims is interesting, actually, and it's like the Roger Deakin thing, that people are inspired by somebody who's done it before. But in Byron's case, there was nobody that he knew on the planet who'd done it, apart from Leander. In the Greek myths, it was Leander, wasn't it, who did it rather than Hero. I'm not big on Greek myths. So yeah, there we are. Yeah.
wicked. So then you end up in I mean, which was the first swim, and where did you first? When was the moment that you were like, right, I'm gonna copy these swims? When did that happen?
Well, I decided to try and do a book about Byron's travels, but to do it in paintings. So I had this very ambitious project to take paints and easels in a car on my own to every single place in Europe that he went to, which was so I ended up taking a camera, and it was weeks and weeks. I eventually got to the Turkey bit. So we went across from Chios to the Turkish mainland, because in those days the Greeks and the Turks were still rather sort of cheesed off with each other, and you could only actually go from this island to Turkey. So this would be June 1987. So I took the car over there. We went to Izmir and then Troy. and then we ended up in Chanakali. And I don't think I'd had a plan to do it before that, but I
Yeah.
thought, well, should we hang on here? I was with a great mate of mine called Chris, and we decided if we could, because when you stand next to the coast there, they say in the books, you know, it's only about 2 miles or something, but it really seems like a very considerable thing to do, and there's no way that you could just sort of dip in and go through because it's a massive shipping lane. You know, it'd be very dangerous. So I really can't quite remember, but we made it. You know, I made it my business to find out how we could do it. And the guy who was the mayor, as well as a major kind of fixer and tourist guy, running trips to the Gallipoli beaches, you know, the Dardanelles and all that. But he also, as a sideline, was able to facilitate the cross of the Hellespont. So we had to wait
Wow.
a couple of days while I mean, it's a shame because Sarah and I put together one or two snaps. You know, I went to a Turkish bath, I think the day before we did the swim.
Right.
Um, but he had to move the car across from Chanakali to the other side so that we could swim from, as Byron did, from the European side to the Asian side. And then
Wow.
and then if I achieved it, the ferry, not the ferry boat, the little fishing boat would take us back, and then we could carry on to Istanbul and continue the journey of Lord, you know, in the steps of Lord Byron. So it was a big deal, and of course, it's difficult to sort of imagine now, but in those days, there were no computers, there was no mobile phones. The only way I could communicate was by sending a letter from the hotel in Istanbul after I'd done the swim to my mother, um, you know, or a telephone or
Yeah.
just a landline. There was no computers, so things like this were really quite tricky to do.
And that swim in particular, like when I mention this story to people, which I have done, like quite a lot, people raise their eyebrows at that swim quite a lot because of I think there's quite strong currents, isn't there, on that crossing?
Yeah,
Quite
they're
strong
very
current.
strong. You have to kind of do a deg log, a dog leg,
Right.
you know, because the current pushes you that way. Because basically, all the water from the Med and the Black Sea meet at that particular, is it confluence? You know, that's where they meet.
Yeah.
So one side is sometimes stronger than the other, and it's a relatively narrow channel. It's about 2 miles, something like that.
Yeah.
And you know, I remember on the day that I did it, it was all very pleasant in the morning, or I said, you get out there, and there's a real swell. You know, it's pretty full on.
Yeah.
Shame because I was gonna, you know, I'd got all the photographs, but you can't show them.
No, but what I have managed to do quickly, and this is not normally my strong point, so I'm quite proud of this. So while you were talking, I was sort of multitasking a little bit. So I've managed to get some of the slides up that you did for the press release. So we could maybe have a little bit of a look at them now if you want to.
Yeah, have you got the turkey ones?
I've got ones that I snapped to do something. Let me just have a look. So if I do that now and press share. Hopefully that's coming up on people's screens, is it? Um, am I on the screen now?
Sorry, Scott. What?
Can you see anything on the screen now?
Yeah.
And let me
I
just
don't know what I'm seeing, darling.
slideshow, present view.
Yeah, if I could move your mouse, but I can't.
No. Is that it?
Oh, there we are. That was the one.
So from the start here, can everyone see that? The sort of romantic Byron and the romantic poet bit? Give me a thumbs up if you can see that. Brilliant. I saw a nod from Sharon. Um, yeah, so that's what people can see now. So I mean, I know these were just like things that you put together, weren't you? But there's some pictures on here as well. Um, and we've not mentioned it yet, but it is the 200th anniversary, isn't it, of his death?
Yeah, yeah, he died in I think it was April the 19th this year, 200 years ago.
Wow.
So there's my painting on the screen of his body being brought back to England, resting in the Thames. And the story goes that his faithful dog, this great big Newfoundland called Lion with a Y, because of its enormous size, it was laying next to his coffin when they brought it into to London.
Wow.
And on the top there, this extraordinary looking object is the sort of Homeric helmet that Byron had made in Geneva before he went to Greece for his fateful military campaign.
Yeah. Um, so I mean, and then like we
Yes,
say, Newstead Abbey was obviously a massive part of Byron's life, but you managed to practice swimming in there as well.
yeah. There's a shot of me, I think somewhere. There we go, the left-hand side.
Yeah. Just cut you off a little bit there, haven't I? Might be able to get that up looking a little bit better. But if you can talk about it, I'll try and get that up a little bit better. So what was it like getting in Newstead Abbey?
Well, I mean, when I got married there, actually, I did the same thing, and I've even swum in the Eagle Pond, which is behind the West Front, which is where the great brass lectern, which I think is now in Southwell Minster, was retrieved from there at the dissolution of the monasteries. So it's a square pond at the back of. In fact, if you look at the photograph on the top right, that's the
Yeah.
Eagle Pond there. So I remember the Evening Post did a sort of promo picture of me there saying Nick's Cash Splash when I was sort of swimming around in the Eagle Pond before I did the Venice swim for the ITV telethon, which was a year later after the Turkey swim. But on the left-hand side, that's when I was swimming in the lake, which is the main lake on the photograph on the bottom right.
Funny because the main lake looks, I thought that that was in the square pond because you can see the Abbey looks really like on the shores of the lake.
Yeah, because it was on a telephoto lens.
Oh, and yeah, I can see which bit now you would have been swimming in then. So it's where the lake wraps around in front of the Abbey, is it? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
But
And
I think we did that in summer, so it wasn't too cold. And I was a much younger man then, so
yeah. And did anybody ever swim in those lakes?
no. Um, I mean, to my knowledge, the main lake, um, there always seems to be a problem, perennial problem with algae,
Yeah.
and it's quite dangerous apparently, or it's very unhealthy. But I've often sort of thought, well, Byron was, in a sense, the first proto wild swimmer. And wouldn't it be interesting to think that those lakes there, I mean, they're just lakes, they're fed, they're not stagnant pools, that somehow that, Newstead Abbey's heritage could incorporate, in regard to Lord Byron, could incorporate the sense of wild swimming or something in that.
Yeah. Um, and then the other shots, like so the swimming in Venice, like it's just I'll just stop sharing this here for a second. We'll just focus back in on you, Nick. But yeah, like that just looked so incredible. And like what's so unique about that is that nobody will probably ever do that again.
Well, just going back to the swim in Turkey,
Yeah,
um, once I'd done that, I was obviously pretty proud of it, and the guy, uh, Mr. Hussein, his name was, gave me a receipt, which again I shame because I was going to show you that. It just says services for swimming the Hellespont. 67,500 Turkish lira, which I don't know whether it was 40 quid, 50 quid, you know, but it wasn't a massive amount of money even then.
Yeah.
And he gave me a little medal, and we went on our way. But the year later, again, I'm not quite sure how it sort of developed, but I got back from this great big tour of all the footsteps of Lord Byron all over Europe. I drove back through Yugoslavia, and then, you know, got back. And I'd been commissioned by Nottinghamshire County Council. I think it was called in those days New Arts Work. They were based in West Bridgford. And I was to put together this huge photographic exhibition, which, you know, eventually toured quite a few places in connection with Byron around the country. And so they funded me a little bit to do some of the photography and whatever, but not on that tour. And so I decided to see whether I could, for his bicentenary of his birth. So he was born in 1788. So this was 1988. So I thought, well, I wonder if I could, you know, because I was telling people in the Byron Society I'd done this Hellespont swim. And it was very difficult because, you know, not only to swim the distance that he did, which is from the Lido across the lagoon, you know, get to St. Mark's Square and then turn left and then go right through the Grand Canal under the Rialto and get out where Byron got out, which was now La Ferrovia, the station, that point, right at the end of the Grand Canal. You know, it seemed like a kind of impossibility. So if I wasn't really getting anywhere, because again, you know, there's no computers, no emails, no internet. It was just simply telephone or letter, you know, to the Venetian authorities, which was pretty tricky from a flat in Sherwood in Nottingham. So eventually, I thought, well, I'll see if I can contact Michael Foote, who was quite flattering about my paintings of Byron. Michael Foote, incidentally, was the ex-leader of the Labour Party, you know, back in those days.
Yeah.
And he was, you know, obviously a famous character, but he was a very famous Byronist because of Byron's political viewpoints and perspectives. So Michael Foote was a very big fan, and he was a great scholar on Byron. He wrote a letter from the House of Commons notepaper, to the British consulate in Venice, and things started to happen. So I got a meeting with the mayor of Venice. So I had to fly over there, go into the mayor's office. And the day I did that, I had a streaming sinus cold. And this nice Italian lady who I was with, who was trying to help me with the translations, said, no, he's absolutely fine. He's a great swimmer. And I could see the mayor thinking, you know, this guy's, you know, he's not going to be able to do this. But anyway, so I managed to get all the inoculations I could from my doctors in Nottingham. But I remember she said, there's one thing, Nick, that we can't inoculate you for, and that's Weil's disease, which is from effluent from rats. And so I took a risk.
Wow. And how far was that swim then?
Well, it felt like about 7.5. It's probably about 6.
6 miles.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a swimmer. I was an artist.
But it's but I know, and you say, and head up breaststroke as well. Well, not head up breaststroke. You were getting your head in, weren't you? But you can't. I suppose you couldn't keep putting your head in because of the quality of the water, in a way.
Well, I remember when across the lagoon. So there were, as I set off, there was a police Villigi Urbani, which is basically the local cops. And they both look like Marcello Mastriani, you know, with all the scrambled egg round the caps.
Should I pop the video on?
Yeah, you can if you like.
I'll just see if I can just pop it on, and you can probably, if I put this out, you'd probably be able to talk over it just quietly. What could possibly go wrong, eh? I'll just have a go at popping it on. I'll need to share this here. That right? And then share. Oh, hold on. Hold on. I'll just come back out again. So I'll just share the audio as well. Sorry, guys. Bear with me. Share. That's good. I'm doing that thing, aren't I, where I talk to myself and do stuff. And if I click there. Is that okay for everybody?
Scott,
Yeah.
I hasten to add that I didn't make this. It's made by Italian TV.
Okay. Well, I think you can talk over it slightly and let us know what's going on. I'll turn it down slightly.
Yeah, it's jumping this end.
Oh, is it jumping a little bit? Is that happening for you as well, Sharon? Okay, is it? But that gives you the idea anyway of what was going on. Some goose fat rubbing.
Sorry, Scott.
I guess it's some goose fat rubbing going on.
Yeah, a bit of goose fat. Is this guy on the left, the policeman?
And off you go.
Yeah, and so I did a little bit of flamboyant freestyle to get going. But it seemed like an awfully long way.
It is. 6 miles is an incredible distance. Okay, so you can see the boats there. Just stop sharing there and we can come back to things. But yeah, I just thought it's worth having a look at it while you were on, just to refresh the memory and fire things up again. But yeah.
I was going to say, you were talking about the quality of the water. I can remember one bit, which is sort of entering the Grand Canal proper, where I've stayed a few times, with Sarah and my daughter, in a nice hotel. And there were bin bags and various sort of mysterious, unknown monsters of the deep that, as I was swimming, sort of underneath, brushed past my legs and arms.
Freaks you out, doesn't it? I'm guessing.
Sorry?
It's a bit of a freak out type thing to happen.
Yeah, it was that was quite surreal, and I do remember there was quite a few people on the Rialto Bridge sort of looking down, and they were just looking down with sort of bemusement and kind of incredulity that somebody was doing this, because it wasn't some big showbiz event. It was just me, the Valigia Barney speedboat. What do they call those? Reaver. It was like a reaver, beautiful boat, and then a gondola with a press guy and so on. So yeah.
So you do that. I mean, it was a flamboyant start, and I love the music on the video as well at the start and all that kind of stuff. What was the end like then? What was it? Just as flamboyant? Was it fist pumping celebrations?
I got out, and I got two close pals who'd come over for the gig, So we got out. I got dried. I mean, I think some of that I can't remember.
Yeah,
because I think events like that, were it not for the photographs and bits of video, I think you kind of sort of think, did I do that? Is this the same person?
Mm.
But I say to people when I'm talking, I think I do think human beings have got this extraordinary ability to actually, it's a bit like evolution. We're not the same people as we were 2,000 years ago in some respects. But I think think you know, all your DNA changes. Well, not your DNA, but I think you don't just gradually get more decrepit, because we do, but we change, and I'm not the same person, but I am.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, yeah.
So I think a lot of stuff gets erased, but it's maybe still there.
Yeah.
But just
Yeah.
talking about all that sort of stuff, because we were talking when we first met that he did one great third swim, which was the first one he did, which was across the Tagus in Lisbon.
Yeah.
So I'd quite like to do that before I get too. But not this year, sadly, the bicentennial year, but maybe next year.
Yeah. And it is something that, we've chatted about, isn't it? I hope um you're not going to be that chancer that you were back in the day and just rock up and just try and do it without much training. I think you'd probably need to put a little bit in. I'd help you if you wanted to.
Yeah, no, definite training, and yeah, as you say, you can't just rock up. You've got to plan that very seriously.
Yeah, cool. But no, that I mean, it would be a great story, wouldn't it? But no matter whether that happens or not, I think it's already an absolutely amazing story, and it's lovely to I don't know, just to capture it because yeah, chance conversations in pubs like lead us down really positive rabbit holes sometimes, and that's what I feel about this.
Well, let me tell you something interesting. That when I'd done the swim, I produced this enormous mural in the flat in Sherwood, where I was living at the time. And in this great sort of vista of the Grand Canal, slightly mythologicalized, I painted dolphins, sporting in the Grand Canal. So it was all rather symbolic and all nice bits and pieces. And there was a gondola. There wasn't me swimming, but it was a sort of evocation of, La Serenissima, Venice, and there was a mermaid in it and so on, and the dolphins. And of course, what was extraordinary is that during COVID, because tourism evaporated in Venice and there was very little traffic and all the rest of it, dolphins were again seen in the Grand Canal.
Wow.
So, but now, if you try and get in any of the canals in Venice, especially the Grand Canal, you'll be very seriously fined.
Yeah.
So it's totally verboten. But what I was going to say about the Grand Canal swim was that the Daily Mail, their sort of gossip columnist back in the day, a guy called William Hickey, a sort of society chatterbox thing, he found out I was going to do this thing, and he said that the great movie star Audrey Hepburn in this film, Catherine Hepburn, she was in this movie, I don't know, late 40s, early 50s, called Summer Madness, where she's required to splash into a canal. And he said, I hope that he's going to have more luck, because Catherine Hepburn caught an eye infection from that particular stunt as part of the film that she's never recovered from. So I was going to show you one of the slides. Catherine Hepburn sent me this beautiful letter saying, still got the bug. How very daring of you. So I got a letter from Catherine Hepburn, about the Grand Canal swim. So that was cool.
It's incredibly cool. I've you've shown me that letter, haven't you? And yeah, I think the whole thing, like, it's just fascinating. I'm hoping like this does it justice really, and all that kind of stuff. But I think
But yeah,
now,
Scott,
yeah,
so just reminded me, talking about sort of memorabilia. So this little
yeah,
silver charm I don't wear, but Paddy, my son, the ex-boxer, he wears it sometimes, a bit of bling. This is the only piece of jewelry that's been across the Hellespont, and I was going to show you the pictures, and the Grand Canal. They still got it.
so that went on. But oh, I can I shouldn't spend that much time. I feel like I've spent a lot of time looking at your younger chest by rewatching that video. So yeah, when he's rubbing the oil in, I remember seeing it now dangling in that video.
Now, Scott, now this is even better. These are the actual trunks that I went down the canal in,
Wow,
but they don't work anymore. That it feels like sort of
it don't work.
metal in there. No, but anyway, there we are. Look,
Wow. So that was the canal one, was it? Have you kept your other ones as well?
no, because I think they were just too gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you couldn't stitch one of these badges on, could you? But it would look good on there. They are available, like I do keep saying. But yeah. But no, what a fantastic story. And I know we've not got many people in tonight, but um, I've got more questions. But I'd just like to pause just to see if anybody else has got any questions or wants to just pass comment or anything really. Feel free to open up your microphones, guys.
Yeah. Oh, I had a question about the water temperature and the air temperature, is to see how much of a challenge that was.
You're talking about the temperature of the water.
Yeah, and the air temperature as well.
Well, I was a lot. Yeah. Well, I was less than half the age I am now. I think a lot of adrenaline takes over, but I think the sea is one of those things where you start going even after just a few strokes, and it feels to sort of normalize a bit. I didn't ever feel a chill in either one of the swims because I think it's adrenaline, and you know, it was great. I mean, I remember the Hellespont. It was very frightening, really, but it was exciting, and I think that the sea and the buoyancy and all the rest of it. I think I never felt a chill, but I guess that was June. Sorry, it was July the 1st. I did that, 1987. I guess the sea temperature would have been equable, wouldn't it?
Mm.
It must have been, down there. And I was giving it the full beans. So your body is very much like that. And I think again the lagoon in Venice. That was what 23rd of May, the next year. I never felt a chill. So I can't say.
Mm.
After doing a few marathons and little fun runs, I appreciate what you're saying about the adrenaline kicks in and you get to going and you don't realize until afterwards
Yeah.
the muscle stiffness kicks in and things of that nature.
Sharon, the one thing I would say is this, that not so much after the Turkey one, but my friends went the next morning, and I was staying in a little hotel on the front in Venice called Pensione Wildner. It's still there. And I slept. I went to bed at normal time, I guess 11, half 12. We'd had quite a lot to drink, to celebrate and maybe something to eat. I slept. I couldn't believe when I woke up, it was about 2:30 in the afternoon. I mean, I just slept and slept and slept. So, my body was telling me that something had happened. And then the next few days, I was rather sort of sedentary. So it's amazing what adrenaline will do, isn't it?
Yes, indeed.
It's obviously a mental thing as well, because you're in there. And when I started ploughing across the lagoon before I got to Venice, because breaststroke is not the most penetrative thing, because you're not racing, it's just breaststroke, it's not freestyle. It seemed like an eternity.
Yeah.
But you just keep going,
Well, 6 miles breaststroke, like I can swim a mile freestyle in half an hour. So, like, but if I was to do breaststroke, I would literally be I think I would be an hour doing a mile. So I'm thinking that would have taken me about 6 hours,
Yeah, but
7 hours.
for whatever reason, I seem to be able to do that stuff. I don't know quite why. I think the confidence to do the Grand Canal was born out of the fact that I'd done this thing from ground zero, because all I'd been doing prior to the Hellespont swim was sitting in a car,
Yeah.
you know. So I'd had no real exercise. So I think the fact that I pulled that off, and I think the mayor and the fishermen on the boat in Turkey, looked at me. I was quite lithe, I wasn't a big guy. And I think they were sort of think, well, he's not going to do this, because loads of people have tried. Lots of people have tried since, and it's not that easy. Eventually I got to the other side, and my knees started to sort of scrape the shingle, and I thought, my God, I've done this. And I got up, and this Turkish soldier, because it's like a military base there, they don't have people rocking up, and he shooed me off. So I was gonna look, man, I've done this. This guy in a little pair of swim trunks, and they could see this fishing boat, so that it wasn't it was vaguely official. So I went towards this guy in a white short sleeve shirt and white trousers and all the rest of it, and a little gun and whatever. I was going to say, hey man, for the photographs, but he wasn't having any of it. He shooed me off. So back in the water, and then swim, I guess it must have been 200 yards back to the fishing boat. But again, I've got those photographs, but sadly couldn't do it.
Yeah, I know. And it is a shame with the technical issues and stuff.
I'll have to put it in part of my autobiography if it ever gets done.
Yeah. But there might be a way I can edit some bits in, maybe when we share it on YouTube.
Yeah.
But I'm not that good at that. Maybe Sarah can help, or find someone that she tells what to do to help.
Sure.
Do my best.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just an incredible achievement, and I just think it just works. It's such a nice thing to do around the Blue Mind as well. Just because I'd never even thought about Byron and water, and I can't say I'm a Byron fan, but you've certainly sowed a seed that I'm gonna go back now, and I'm gonna look through Byron's work and sort of read up more on his story and all that kind of thing. So
But you see my point about Newstead Abbey. It's got 2 lakes and a square pond, for want of a better expression.
Yeah.
There's the upper lake and the lower lake, and then behind the abbey, there's the constructed Eagle Pond. So it's 3 stretches of water right next to a shrine to Byron. See, they're missing a trick, or somebody's missing a trick, because it's a beautiful spot, and surely it could be, surely it could be safe to swim there in honor of Byron. It would be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it's the economics of the situation at the moment, perhaps.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, it's basically what goes on all around the UK. Basically, it's they're banging no swimming signs, mainly because if they don't put no swimming signs in, they can end up with some liability. So they don't even really mean it. It's more if you get in, you'll get in trouble. But in somewhere new like Newstead Abbey, I imagine they would mean it. They wouldn't want people just getting in willy-nilly.
Oh no, I mean, no, one's not suggesting that. It's the same sort of system that they operate down at the Serpentine in central London.
Yeah.
People can actually swim there.
Yeah.
Under conditions, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's
that. Yeah, there's not a willingness to find out how we can do it, if that makes sense. It's just they're used to saying no, they're used to having the signs up, and it's almost in this country we've become used to people saying you just can't swim. If you believed like the way we work things, it's something like, it must be something like 10 times more dangerous than anywhere else in the world to swim. Like, because
it's an indictment, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like you will get cold water shock and you will die, but you can go further north and you can go to Scotland and you can get in any body of water without any problems.
Yeah.
So it's not it's obviously like yeah, it needs updating. And there's people campaigning for that, and we've had people on here that are campaigning from that, from the Outdoors Swimming Society and all that kind of stuff. So as a charity, we're sort of behind creating more access because we want to see more. If people are doing that, more people are going to be inspired, and more people are going to want to do similar things to what you've done. And it's a pathway back into history and all sorts of things, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. As long as we don't create too many James Deans along the way, I suppose, if that makes sense. But yeah,
Well, I'm still here. I'm 67.
exactly. So, but yeah, has anyone got any more questions or there's not at the moment? But I think thank you so much, Nick, for coming on and sharing that. And I'll get this edited and get it onto YouTube. So please share it, people, and get other people um, to learn about this because I think it's a brilliant thing. And yeah, just good luck with the next steps. And certainly, like if anything else happens, we'd love to have you back on again just to tell us about
Sure.
completing the triple crown or whatever you would call it as the three swims
Yeah,
there.
that's quite good. Yeah, the Triple Crown. Yeah.
Yeah, but and Sharon as well. I'll drop you an email, Sharon. And yeah, if you would like to come on and do the USA sort of evening, we'll
Okay. Yeah.
I'll see how you feel about it on email. So yeah.
Okay. And I may have some resources for you as well. I, I was once part of leadership art here in Oklahoma and went through the program. So I do some uh, secret squirrel things with the Oklahoma Arts Council, things that are uh, just where I'll be a helper with them. Sometimes they're wonderful. And they've recently announced grant programming for arts in the senior population.
Yeah.
And also they've done military in the arts, which
Wow.
was a phenomenal program that put art instructors, whether it was, I should say, art and culture instructors in veterans homes and did
So
some really wonderful programming.
wow. So for the next chat, we could maybe do a little bit of a theme with the guy in Chicago. Like I say, he's doing uh, a lot of work around dementia and singing, and now he's reading The Blue Mind
Oh,
and starting to be conscious about how he brings the water into that as well.
oh,
Um,
fantastic.
so between you and him, and we've got a nice maybe arts-based, um, I don't know, discussion almost around.
Yeah, yeah.
We could make it work somehow, couldn't we? And yeah, because it's the Awaken Your Blue Mind challenge that I mentioned earlier. I think it's something like 25% now of people taking part are in the USA. So
Wow.
we've got a little bit of we've got more interest every year from America. So it's just be nice to do something just to capture somebody new that's doing the challenge. And Sharon, you're now an expert in the Awaken Your Blue Mind challenge, aren't you? Because it's your third year, I think, isn't it? So
Yes, yeah, quite excited.
yeah. But
Uh,
anything with a charity, I mean, it's one approach we all take, everybody that's involved is just growing it with people and exploring. So it'd be fantastic to do something like that. So yeah.
yeah,
But no,
super.
thank you everybody. And yeah, uh, what a great evening. And Nick, just so you know, I might pop into the Bell for a very, very quick drink because my daughter Lucy will be back at about 8:45, so I can maybe pop in and I might see you, Nick, in a minute. All right, guys. Thank you
Peace.
so much.
Bye bye.
Cheers.
Take care. Bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Good evening.
Bye bye. Bye bye.